Gardeners feel the seasonal rhythms in the garden dance just as a musician feels rhythm in their bodies. I find it useful to group the vegetables in couples or threesomes as they enter into the garden and then go back out of it. Peas and lettuce start the spring out every year. I like to rough plow the spring garden in the fall. Get the compost on it, and maybe even where I plant peas, I'll throw a mulch down that I can just pull away so that I can get that pea seed in the ground early. About the same time, mid-March, that we're planting pea seed, we get the first cold frame ready and sow lettuce that will then be transplanted out into the garden in 4 to 6 weeks. In early spring, potatoes and onions are on my mind. These are other crops that we prepare the ground in the fall with deep tillage and just let it set over winter. The freezing and thawing over the winter really pulverizes the soil and makes it nice, way better than we can do with any kind of tillage. Around the spring equinox, I like to get the onions in the ground, and within a week, I want to get that acre of potatoes planted. By April 1st, we want to plant potatoes' frost-tender cousins. Tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants are carefully planted 1 seed at a time, 2 inches apart in furrows about 4 inches wide. These heat-loving sweet potatoes have a layer of fresh horse manure put underneath them that we dampen and compress. Then when we plant the sweet potatoes on top of some sand on top of that horse manure, it heats up and sprouts up the sweet potatoes much quicker than if I didn't use the horse manure. A seed packet of carrots or beets will say to plant these in the spring as early as possible as soon as the ground can be worked. I disagree. If I plant my carrots real early, it takes 3 weeks for them to sprout. And there's lots of weeds that will sprout and fill that land up with that I have to tend. If I wait until April 11th, I think is when these were planted, the carrots sprout up within a week and I can get in there and till them so much quicker. We spent a little more time this year sowing the seeds very carefully so that we didn't have to thin them later. So the carrots then are already far enough apart where they don't need to be thinned out. By the end of June, they're ready to eat, and they will certainly have caught up with anything that was planted 3 weeks earlier and required a lot more work. The wide leaves of beets shade out the weeds better than the thin foliage of carrots. But even though the carrots require a little more work, they're worth it because they're much sweeter and they don't get themselves into a pickle like these beets do. The next group is a threesome that stays in the garden all year round. Celery, chard, and parsley are cut and come again crops. We plant them early and just take the outer leaves off of these plants, and they come back from the center, and we'll be harvesting celery, chard, and parsley way up into December. Just take out the outer leaves of these and stalks, and then this plant then will put more stalks out from the inside. Celery is started a few months before we plant them out in early April, but the Swiss chard and the parsley are direct seeded. Mid-April also sees the lettuce getting transplanted, along with another seeding of lettuce for setting out later. All of these March and April crops in the garden are frost hardy, so we don't have to worry about a frost with them. We keep the soil around them well stirred to hold in the moisture and keep weeds from sprouting, while we patiently wait for the ground to warm up so we can plant all the delicious summer crops. Tennessee weather varies so much from year to year that we can't just follow a calendar. The dates for this dance depend on how soil feels and how warm it is. When soil is 55 or 60 degrees, it will take a little while for a cucumber to sprout. But if we wait till that soil gets to 65 degrees or 70 degrees, that cucumber seed will sprout up in a few days. That way we can get through the crop with one less hoeing and weeding and less cultivating, because our crop has a jump on the weeds. First week of May is the perfect timing for planting corn. Corn comes in all colors, from the yellow and white and bicolor sweet corns to the rainbow colored corn that the Indians grew, or popcorn. I like to get the ground ready in late April, but then let a rain fall on it and the weeds start to sprout, and then I harrow over it, or in a garden you might just rake over it, and then plant your crop. This is called a stale seed bed. When we get the ground ready but don't plant it, let those weeds germinate, stir the soil again, maybe even a couple of times. And then a stale seed bed gets rid of a lot of the weeding problems later. And then when we do plant, our crop comes up with no weeds. The big threesome now are the summer squash, beans, and cucumbers. All three of these crops go in the ground at the same time. They bear in about 2 months, and then they peter out again in about 3 months. We make another planting of these around the 1st of June, and then again around the 1st of July. And that way we can keep the produce coming in all summer long until the fall's first frost. In mid-May, all danger of frost is past, and it's safe to set out the tomato patch. We plant 3 rows, and then we transplant 2 beds of late lettuce, followed by 3 more rows of tomatoes. This way, by the time we are harvesting the tomatoes, the lettuce has already given us heads, and their beds become a road for access to bushels and bushels of tomatoes that we don't want to carry very far. Late May is perfect for the watermelons and the winter squash. We have a row of beans in between them because they sprawl so much. This couple loves the soil to be so hot that they just jump right up and outcompete the weeds. Watermelons require more hoeing because their leaves don't shade out the weeds like squash does, but their sweet, slurpy fruits are well worth the extra effort. Early June finds us in our last garden to plant, the sweet potato field. Her partners are peppers, some eggplants, okra, and maybe a little late summer squash. These plants love hot weather. They're very tropical. They don't even want the nights to be cool. If we plant early, they just get all weedy. So we wait till June when the ground is not only warm but feels hot. And then we put the sweet potatoes out and the pepper patch. By October, it's time to plant the other couples for their winter covers. And this would be wheat and peas, or rye and vetch. These couples are a grain and a legume. They grow well together during the winter, make growth in the spring, and then get turned into the land to improve it. And then we plant the summer garden again.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.